Tonight, two candidates are in our studio right now waiting to hear from you. From West Oahu, State Senate District 19, the incumbent, Democrat Will Espero, is being challenged by Republican community activist Kurt Fevella. Send your questions for these two candidates right now. And what do you think about changing term limits for Oahu's elected offices? Espero versus Fevella for Senate District 19. Yes or no on Charter Amendment 15, changing term limits. This live broadcast of Insights on PBS Hawaii starts now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff with Hawaii News Now. School conditions, including classrooms that are too crowded or too hot, has been one of the big issues in Ewa. Senate District 19 is also booming with development as growth is pushed out of urban Honolulu. Incumbent Democrat Will Espero has held the seat for 14 years, but longtime community activist Kurt Fevella says it's time for a change. Who will represent Ewa in the state Senate? We'll then talk about one of the 20 Honolulu City Charter amendments up for votes in a general election. Amendment 15 establishes uniform three-term limits for Honolulu's mayor, council members, and the prosecuting attorney. We hope you'll participate during tonight's discussion. You can email, call, or tweet your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org. Don't forget to call in your questions early for the candidates for State Senate District 19, since it will be featured only during the first half of the program. Prior to tonight's show, there was a random drawing that determined the seating order and the order we will use throughout the program. Now to the candidates for State Senate District 19. Senator Will Espero has been a state senator for District 19 since 2002 and currently serves as the vice president of the state Senate. Senator Espero is also the vice chair of the Committee on Public Safety, Intergovernmental, and Military Affairs. Before joining the state Senate, Senator Espero served 3 years in the State House of Representatives. Republican Kurt Fevella is a former refuse inspector with the City and County of Honolulu and a construction worker, and currently serves as the president of the Lions Club, District 50. Mr. Fevella is an ambassador for the Weed and Seed program and led a petition drive requesting funding for improvements to Cabell High School. Before we continue, let's take a look at the makeup of State Senate District 19.
State Senate District 19 includes the communities of Ewa Beach, Ocean Point, Ewa by Gentry, Iroquois Point, and portions of Ewa villages. Nearly 55,000 people live in this district. At 31.5 years as a median age, population skews younger than the state's average. Alone or in combination, the district's racial breakout is 38% Caucasian, 62% Asian, and 28% Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. There are more than 12,000 families in the district. The average household is made up of 3.65 persons, and the median household income is $80,891. More than 90% of the residents graduated from high school, and 23.3% have a bachelor's degree or higher. 31% of all residents speak a language other than English. The median price of a single-family household unit is $421,000, and the median rent is $1,835 per month.
Now let's start off with Senator Espero. You know, you've been in office for a long time. What do you think is important that voters know about you that they probably don't know now?
Well, this is my 17th year in the state legislature, and also I've had 8 years working with Mayor Frank Fossey. And I'd like to think, even with all of those years in office, that I haven't peaked yet. I'm hoping in terms of serving my community and working in the legislature and basically making our state a better place. There's a lot to do. I'm very engaged in the community, but I'm looking forward to hopefully continuing serving, and the best is yet to come for Ewa Beach and for our state.
Now, Mr. Fevella, you've running as a Republican this year. You've run as a Democrat before. What is it that you bring, do you think, to the state Senate for this district that they don't have now?
A voice for the Ewa Beach community. Not sitting down on the sidelines when it's coming crucial time to vote or make your voice heard, or especially with the kids and overcrowding. You know that the governor gave about $35 million or so into the House, got cut, and then the thing went to the Senate. Nothing was ever put back. It was a design and bill, was something that the governor really wanted to do for the kids and the community of Ewa Beach, but there was no representation in the Senate. Nothing, no voice, nothing, not one peep. So it's frustrating for us to continue to go on and saying that we want to have, same things over and over. We want to change. We don't want Band-Aids in Ever Beach. We want full-on things. We deserve it. The kids at Ever Beach, they study hard. Every year we get the highest scholarships, raising the money in the whole state for the last maybe 5 years. And we still don't get any justice for the building. And we need that building. It's a necessity.
You're talking about the classroom building at Campbell High School?
Yes.
Okay, Senator Espero, I'll let you answer what he's saying. He seems to be suggesting that you haven't been effective in getting stuff into the district.
Well, actually, what he said was somewhat inaccurate because what happened is when the budget came to the Senate, we looked at it and we put in $40 million for a new high school in West Oahu. Currently, there's $5 million which the governor has released for planning and design for a new high school in West Oahu. So our $40 million was against what the House gave us, 12 or 15 million for the new building. And ultimately, we compromised on the amount. So I can assure you that I'm one of the strongest, loudest voices in the Senate, especially the fact that I am in a leadership position and I'm able to work very well with my colleagues in the Senate and in the House. So we did get appropriations for a new building, and we're hoping that we'll be able to get more money in the next session.
Well, but you do have, out of that district, you've got three of the most crowded, largest high schools, or two or three of the largest high schools in the state. I think Campbell High School has 3,000 kids now. And you've been in the legislature all this time. Why is it that the funding doesn't seem to keep up with the growth out there?
Well, the growth is based on projections in what the DOE works with. And frankly, they have been wrong in their projections. But as I mentioned, that we have gotten some funding for the school in the past. We had $12 million to build Sabre Hall, which is a brand new air-conditioned facility at James Campbell High School. And I need to make it clear that Representative Lopresti and I have been working hand in hand very hard for Campbell High School. And if I'm correct, at least 1/3 of the classrooms are air-conditioned. I was just speaking to a senior just last week, and I asked him, are you in classrooms with air conditioning? And he said, oh yes, all of my classes are air conditioned. Now obviously that's not every student all hours of the day. However, we have made significant progress. We've air conditioned Pohakea Elementary School in the last few years, and that was not air conditioned. Eva Mackay Middle School and Keone Ula Elementary School, two new schools in Ever Beach, are completely air conditioned. And we have done a lot, but we have to spread that money around with 25 other Senate districts and House of Representatives as well.
Let me give you a chance to respond to that and also explain how, particularly as a Republican in a mostly Democratic Senate, in fact, there's only one other Republican senator, how would you be able to express that voice to get more stuff for the district?
Just because I turned and I'm running as a Republican doesn't mean I don't still have friends in the Democratic Party and inside the Senate. And as we know, Senator Will knows that. But for the $40 million that he's talking about, it wasn't for a high school. It was actually listed as a secondary school, could be used as a middle or high school. And the $40 million is not enough for a high school. It's going to be a Band-Aid. High school costs $180 million to build. So he talks about the $40 million, and he talks about the classrooms. G building, O building is only getting electrical now. Half of, more than D building is not it's not air conditioned. So majority of the school is not air conditioned. They have fans. They're putting in the electrical upgrades that was 20 years too late, and that's the reason why we're falling behind. But what I'm saying is that he talks about his being president of the Senate, vice president of the Senate and all of that, but that's great, that's all great. But what does that bring to Ever Beach?
Okay, let me give you a chance to respond. Last question on schools, go ahead.
Well, as I said, we have received hundreds of millions of dollars in appropriations for Ever Beach schools, hundreds of millions of dollars for roads in West Oahu. I've got a list that tops $1 billion in CIP for UH West Oahu roads and schools, and we'll do our best and continue, but there are other projects statewide, and that's one of the things that we do at the legislature. We fight our hardest, and we try to get what we can, and if we can't, we go next session, and we've been able to do that since I've been in office.
Okay, first of our viewer questions here for both candidates. How important is visibility in the community? This caller feels, Mike from Eva Beach, that Senator Espero is only seen during parades while Fevella seems to be visible in more events. Thoughts? I'll give you the first response to that.
Well, I attend many school meetings. I was just at Eva School. I was there with a 6th grade class in a science project. A few weeks ago, I was at James Campbell High School. Maybe I'm at events that this individual isn't, and I do believe, though, that I have great access to residents, teachers, community members. They know how to reach me, and there was a coffee with a cop about a month ago at McDonald's in Eva Beach. I think maybe it's just a matter of running into him.
Which events?
Yes.
Let me move on to another topic here. Now, rail is going to be a big issue out there. I mean, it's there. It's right there in the middle of the district. Kurt Fevella, how do you feel about the moves that are going to be made to pay for it? I mean, how do you think it could be paid for? Do you support, for example, extending the excise tax surcharge indefinitely or for more years in order to make sure that thing can be built?
I don't think we should raise up any taxes. I was for rail. I'm not saying I'm not for rail, but I've been for rail from the get-go, from the beginning, when they came to the neighborhood board and started the project. The concept was great. The idea was great. Even when they was going to put it out where the Star Bulletin is at, now they're moving to Kapolei. I was always a big supporter of it, but the way the project went and the mismanagement of the money, I don't think we should add anything more to our taxpayers, burdening them with the costs. I think we should look out of creative ideas and maybe get some privatized or private investors to come in and finish the rail, because our taxpayers, they're paying too much already for this. And there's a lot of money that I think that should be looked into more in the Senate and even in the city. They should get audit. Every department should get audit and really investigate where all the money that is overspending here and there, so that we can find out if we really need to raise taxes to our people in Eva Beach.
What is your solution to this financing issue?
Well, I do believe that we need to extend the 0.5% tax. The idea of public-private partnerships is also a good one to see if developers can build, parts of the station or add-ons in terms of infrastructure. But most people who are polled today believe that the rail should be finished. And in the conversations for the last 20, 30, 40 years, a completed rail goes to UH Manoa. And I support the rail going to UH Manoa. And I believe that the legislature will visit extending the tax and see if we could come up with a formula and a way that we can get it built. One idea that I've been working on now is if we were to extend the 0.5% another 30, 32 years, because right now it's to 2027. 2027 will get it all the way to Middle Street. So we need to get $1 billion plus to Ala Moana, and then to Ala Moana to UH Manoa, that'll probably be $1 billion, 2 or 3 easily. But if you average over that 30-year period, $300 million a year times 30 years, you're looking at $9 billion. $9 billion can complete the rail to UH Manoa, it can extend it into Kapolei, and it can pay for the handy van, bus improvements, and many other state and county transportation infrastructure.
You're also going to have to pay for the operating of the rail, too. Now,
right.
Kurt Fevella, in terms of if the deal was structured in such a way that they said, okay, we'll extend it, but we're also getting it all the way out to UH, maybe even all the way out to further west at the other end, would that be more palatable to you than just paying more for the same system they've been promising?
Yeah, I mean, I'm for getting it out there to University of Hawaii. I always was for connecting the colleges together. I mean, get the kids out of Eva Beach and Waianae to the universities, and that's higher learning. I mean, of course, that's an option that we can be thinking about. But like I said, we can extend them, and like the senator said, he can extend them and be creative and get the $9 billion or whatever that we need. But that's just a projection. Projections can change, construction costs change, everything can change until we can really sit down and get the thing built out, at least up to Middle Street. Then we can see the projection from there. Right now, we can't even get it to Middle Street.
Let's bring up the question of development now. You guys have had an awful lot of development out there. I mean, some call it sprawl. We just saw the groundbreaking for the Ho'opili development.
Yes.
And the roads right now, you're already facing big traffic. What do you think is the solution? Do you support yourself? Did you support the Ho'opili development? And do you feel like the roads are going to be adequate as they build that out?
I was on the Ho'opili task force from the beginning. I think they listened to the community of Ewa Beach, Waipahu, and Kapolei. And I think even Nanakuli and Waianae. I think the project is, if they do it and build it out the way they said they was going to build it, that they're going to have homes and businesses there so that people can work and live in the same area and walk and play in the same area, I'm for that concept. But if it's not going to do that, that they're just going to build it like other developers did, build the houses and skip out on all the amenities, then I'm not for that. But definitely, I think it's a great concept because later on when my daughter's 12 years old now, when she go to college in the area, she can find a home, and maybe she want to open up a business. She can do that right above or below her house. It's a great concept. I mean, I like the concept.
Okay, Senator, I know you support the development. I
Yes.
saw you at the groundbreaking, I think.
Yes.
But are you confident that the government is going to keep up with all that development? Because I don't know that that's their history out there.
Well, Ho'opili is a third-year build-out, let me state that. And we have to look at the future and what it's going to bring. Projections are that in the next 50 years, Honolulu is going to get 500,000 new residents. So we're going to go from 1 million today to 1.5 million. So we need to continue to have houses built, because if we don't provide housing stock, whether those are to purchase or to rent, then prices are going to go up. It's basically a simple supply and demand. What's good about Ho'opili is that Ho'opili is the first master plan community built around a rail. So I look at rail as an H4. We have H1, H2, H3, and it's going to be an H4 because it's going to be that valuable once it's up and running. And if we could continue to develop the west side, more jobs. Ho'opili is expected to have 7,000 jobs. We need to provide more jobs so maybe people aren't driving east.
Let me ask this question, though. You did describe the sort of process of compromise that you have to deal with in the state senate or the state legislature, where, here this area is growing dramatically, and other areas that aren't growing still feel like they deserve their fair share of the bucks. So I'm just wondering, I mean, when the mayor said rail is the only solution for Ho'opili, is that even right? I mean, is that fair to people that they're basically stuck with the rail? They're not going to be able, it'll be very difficult to drive your car.
Well, rail has been part of the discussion for 40 years, going back to the 70s. And when I was with Mayor Frank Fosse in 1992, we really thought it was going to be built. But certainly, it's being built now. Rail is here to stay. We need to see what's it going to take to build rail right, because we don't want to stop it at a point and let another council or another generation deal with it. Because if we do, then the cost is even going to be more expensive. So we need to put our heads together, talk with the community, and see how we can get it built from Kapolei to UH Manoa, because we all know that when UH Manoa is in session, the traffic is always worse.
Kurt Fevella, let me ask you, though, with these developments coming in, are you confident that the government is going to be bringing in the support, the infrastructure, the roads, sewers, and so on in time to be able to deal with this development?
Well, that's why we got to make sure that we're putting people in office that's going to keep them on their project, on what they're doing. I mean, we've been having development in our area that some of the developers, they come to the community, and some of them don't. The main thing for us is that to keep them going is that we got to make sure that not only with the development, like Ho'opili Ho'opili was designed for a walking, no parking, no driving community. And that was the concept from the beginning, that if you wanted to farm your land, they have a little portion in the back of your house that you can grow fruits and vegetables and sell it to the open market that they're going to have there. That's a beautiful concept, and that's the reason why they highlight, and I guess that's the reason why the mayor highlight the rail so much, is because it's going to be a vital in and out for the people in that community. I mean, especially with the schools there and the businesses. That's going to be a vital thing, and it's going to help Ko'olina too, because straight from the airport, straight they don't have to fight those long traffics. And
okay, let me move on now, because I've got a bunch of questions from viewers on a variety of topics. So let me get to some of these. Viewer mentions that recently Mokulele Airlines said they're going to stop service to Kalaeloa Airport. With the west side of the island growing, what ideas do candidates have for attracting other airlines and ease the transportation issues? Isn't that Kalaeloa Airport isn't that a very disappointing situation?
It is, and I think Mokulele was probably just a little too early. But I've been speaking with some people within the Department of Transportation, and I will be pushing, if I am reelected, that DOT develop a master plan for that airport, because it is certainly a jewel for us. Right now, there's talk of moving the general aviation to that area, and we've appropriated money to build more T hangars. There's also talk of the wealthy and rich being able to fly in there, especially those that are going to be going to Ko'olina, and that's a possibility. And in the future, I do foresee it that it could have neighbor island back and forth, but probably first on a small scale, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
You know, Kurt Fevella, I mean, that airport is only one of the larger Kalaeloa development, which for a lot of people out there, that's a really unmet opportunity, isn't it?
For them closing down, it's really sad, because it really did benefit the people from our side of the island to be catching that plane going to the neighbor islands on a little cheaper fare, yeah? But the bottom line is we've been talking about these millionaires and these high-priced guys that fly the planes and come down, limousines going to come and pick them up for the last 5-6 years. Whatever that's going to transpire, I don't know. But to me, I think, we stepped in to help our airlines back in the day, and we let one other airlines fail. I think we should be more proactive on the DOT or in the state government side in making sure that these guys plan when they come in there, that they don't set themselves up to fail, that they have a plan that they're going to be able to stay there for the longevity. And I think we should help them as a government on a new business in that area. Yeah, maybe it was a little bit too early, but they're leaving too early too. So we should step in as a government like we did. We helped out Hawaiian Airlines, and now they're a monster.
Let me get another topic, another caller. What happened to the plan to move UH to the west side? Now, there is a UH West Oahu out there. Do you feel, Senator, that it's met its expectation, that it's been growing fast enough? It seems like we've talked about it forever.
Certainly, and a large amount of the students at UH West Oahu do come from James Campbell High School and Kapolei High School. Right now, I think there's probably about 2,400 students at UH West Oahu, and I foresee UH West Oahu easily being a 10,000 student campus. And then you've got Tokai University right next door as well. So we have some higher education institutions, and UH West Oahu is going to be an employment center, a destination, and UH West Oahu connected to UH Manoa is the ideal situation that we should be working on.
Do you feel that there's been enough done to make sure that campus grows fast enough to do what it can do?
I think they should. I think it meets what it needs now. For the opening part, but I know they was talking about not duplicating classes. That what's happening up in Manoa, but I think they should consider later on when they build it out to the capacity of what it is, they should be considering having a little bit more duplication later on. I mean, of course, they don't want to do that because then it's going to take away from Manoa. But the bottom line is this: we don't have kids that are going to be able to go and take these classes. So they end up taking classes at Leeward College or somewhere else because it's closer. But if you have some of these classes that they can take out there, and when West Oahu was at Leeward, I mean, that's a phenomenal school. I mean, it hits every standard what we need in the community. And definitely it benefits Kapolei and James Campbell High School, because now they have an alternative. I mean, have you ever seen how Campbell's High School's structuring of Sabre Hall is just college? I mean, it's phenomenal. When I went to Campbell High School back in that days, was going to National Guard.
Yeah.
You know, and I have nothing to do with colleges, and it's unreal.
Good. Let me move on now, because we've only got a couple minutes and
Yeah.
got a number of questions here. One good question from a viewer: when the candidates walk the district, what is the biggest concern of constituents? And Senator, like in 30, 40 seconds, what's the biggest concern people talk to you about?
Well, people are always concerned about traffic and transportation, getting in and out of Eva Beach. If families have students or children, they're concerned about education, facilities, and making certain they get a good education. And I do run into people who are also asking about jobs and making certain that we can create more jobs in West Oahu.
Yourself, what do you hear most from your constituents?
Homes, affordable, real affordable homes, you know, and definitely Campbell High School's overcrowding of 3,200 students. Basically, our roads are not big enough for the development that is coming in. I mean, a north-south road, yeah, we got the north-south road.
It's a really big road.
Yeah, but the road would end up going real south, and then actually in Eva Beach where it was planned to be. You know, I mean, it took a lot of time to have that road done, but to me, roads are very important, and for health and welfare, for the community's safety.
Okay, really quickly now, last question, a big question. What ideas do the candidates have for diversifying the economy? Let me start with you, Kurt Fevella. About 30 seconds.
Well, for me, it's just when you bring projects or development into the community, making sure that the jobs is good paying jobs. And just having enough work that would, you know, every time the construction jobs go slow, the economy go down.
Right.
So we want something that is longevity. We know OPD is going to be 30 years, but in our community we have hotels that is going to be coming up. We need to make sure that we expedite it and get it done quickly to help the economy in Eva Beach.
Okay, Senator, very, very briefly.
We could build a film industry in UH West Oahu because we just funded the Academy of Creative Media at UH West Oahu. Arts and culture is important for tourism and for our local people. Diversified agriculture, we can do a lot in terms of more homegrown crops, and hemp. Hemp can be a game changer for Hawaii.
Great, thank you very much, Senator Espero, Kurt Fevella. Time goes really fast with this, and I really appreciate you both joining us. Before we discuss the Honolulu City Charter Amendment coming up in a minute, we have a Hiki No story produced by Campbell High School and Eva Mackay Middle School students.
Welcome to James Campbell High School in Eva Beach on Oahu. In 1879, James Campbell drilled the first artesian wells into the arid Eva Plains, transforming them into a sugar plantation. To move the cane, the workers, and eventually the military in World War II, the Oahu Railway was built through Eva Beach. Today, you can still take a ride on this historic train. Our first story takes place here on Oahu, where students from Eva Mackay Middle School highlight how their physical education program is using technology to help students get fit both physically and digitally.
With the rise of technology in our lives, many feel physical education is stuck in the past. But the Eva Mackay PE department has taken a whole new mindset and thinking to challenge their students.
I thought it was going to be more sweating and more playing outside.
I really thought that PE was actually going to be kind of torturous.
Technology does help students learn. And so for some, they need to hear it. Some people need to see it. Some people need to sing it. Some people need to write it down. And technology allows that. Technology gives many avenues to learn. PE tends to be the most athletic kids do well because they can demonstrate it. And then you have somebody with no skill, no experience of it, and now they're expected to do that same skill. But now with technology, maybe they can't necessarily perform it, but they can express it. You know, whether it's through song, whether it's a PowerPoint, whether it's even seeing themselves.
Merging physical education with technology allows all students an equal chance to express what they have learned, making the focus less on the physical aspect and more on the educational aspects of PE. such as taking interactive notes and using heart rate monitors to control the speed and time at which they exercise.
I think the most helpful piece of technology would be our heart rate monitor unit done by Mrs. Combs. She's able to track her students' progress daily in terms of them working out in their target heart rate zone. The heart rate monitor can be something done outside of class. You don't need a lot of fancy equipment, and it can keep you healthy aerobically. You know, our PE program here, we don't focus on traditional sports, and we want students to be lifelong healthy and productive citizens. And I think just exposing all of our students to different pieces of technology.
I believe the technology that helped me the most was when we took videos from the iPad, because when I reviewed them, I knew what I was doing wrong. And the next time when I was ever to do that same activity again, I was sure not to do that same mistake again.
I think about PE after using technology is like more easier and simple, because then later on in the years we can look back to what we've learned.
The Eva Mackay PE department has helped students learn a new way to stay healthy by combining traditional sports with new technology. This is Faith Borges from Eva Mackay Middle School for Hikino.
Welcome back. During this general election, Oahu voters will face a very long ballot, not just races for elective office, but also 20 charter amendments. Charter Amendment 15 proposes uniform 3-term limits for Honolulu's mayor, council members, and prosecuting attorney. Joining us tonight to help highlight some of the pros and cons and figuring out how to vote for these things are Peter Carlisle, who served as Honolulu's 13th mayor from 2010 to 2012 and recently made an unsuccessful bid for mayor this year. He was Honolulu's prosecuting attorney for 14 years. At present, Mr. Carlisle is a partner with the law firm O'Connor, Playton, and Gubin. And Natalie Iwasa, also known as the Bike Mom for her efforts to make Honolulu more pedestrian and bike-friendly, is a certified public accountant and chair of the Hawaii Kai Neighborhood Board. A longtime advocate of community involvement, Ms. Iwasa ran unsuccessfully for Honolulu City Council in 2014. She's currently the co-founder and president of Cycle On Hawaii. Now, the city charter is Honolulu's constitution. Every 10 years, a Honolulu Charter Commission is appointed by the mayor and council and tasked with reviewing the city charter. One of the commission's proposals this year is Amendment 15, which changes the term limits for council members from 2 to 3 4-year terms, for mayor from 2 to 3 4-year terms, and for prosecuting attorney, the amendment establishes a new term limit of 3 consecutive 4-year terms. Currently, there are no term limits for that office. Now, let me start off with Natalie Iwasa. As a community activist, and you see an amendment like this, do you think people are going to be confused by what they're being asked to do?
I think so, and it's been a long process for the Charter Commission, but I think when we have the mayor, the council members, and the prosecuting office, and one already has term limits and the other doesn't, it adds to confusion for the voters.
What do you think about that?
Well, I'd like to know what they think is wrong with the system that we've got right now. I mean, I don't see that there was anything difficult at the time when I was running for prosecutor to be doing that over and over and over again. By the same token, in the mayor's office, I believe that that's a particular office that has isn't any more important than the President of the United States, and I don't see any reason why it wasn't perfectly okay to spend 4 years there and then 4 years again and then move on. You want to get new ideas and new visions of the future perpetually permeating the basic culture of don't change anything. And there's plenty that needs to be changed in government. I think we're seeing that at both the local and the national level very clearly right now.
Let me ask, though, as a former prosecutor yourself, what impact would it be? I mean, you served 4 terms. What impact would it have had if you had to stop after 3?
Well, the most important thing for anybody who's in elected office, and what the vast majority of politicians don't do, is to basically mentor somebody so that they'll take over when you leave. So what you do is you create a plan of succession, and then you do everything you can to put that into effect. Now, we tried to do that with Don Picaro to get him back in instead of Keith Kaneshiro, and people didn't listen and people didn't vote for Don Picaro, and now we've got this catastrophe in the prosecutor's office right now that continues to be an ongoing saga of embarrassment to the law enforcement community.
Since Peter Carlisle kind of went to the substance of the matter, how do you feel about this amendment? Yes or no, up or down?
Well, actually, I'm opposed to the amendment itself. I think that we do need term limits. And my husband and other people think that, well, the elections are term limits in themselves, but we've had so many cases where the incumbents are not unopposed that there's really no other choice for the voters. And that's why it's really important to have term limits.
You yourself, when you contemplate, you ran for, I think was it an open seat that you ran for when
Yes.
you finally ran? So you wait until there's an open seat, right? Is that how it works
Well,
for most
actually,
politicians?
I think that happens in a lot of instances. In my case, it wasn't. The timing was just there for me to do that. But in many cases, I think that's what happens: is people just wait because they feel like they have no chance at it otherwise.
By you guys saying that, it reminds me. I mean, the most obvious example of that is Washington D.C. I mean, once you get into the club, you're there forever. And they may be yah-yahing at each other back and forth, but they all have their own backs to make sure.
In the state legislature, too.
There you go. Okay, exactly. The very accurate. I don't follow them quite as much as I follow the others because there's only 4 or 5 of them.
Let me ask, though, when you look at a race, and Natalie Wassa, you can pitch in on this, the incumbents, while they're in office, are in a great place to raise money, and they raise a lot of money. So how intimidating do you think it is for someone to try and take on an incumbent?
Well, the point is that if you have enough money, I mean, the question is, do you have somebody who will buy, somebody who will lie, or somebody who will plagiarize to get themselves in office? And more often than not, that happens, at least to some extent, unfortunately. And if you go in there and you make your #1 priority is that every night you're going to get a $4,000 kickback or whatever you're going to get from 10 people, and you keep on doing this on and on, you're going to have millions of dollars. And that's what you've seen in the Caldwell administration. I mean, he goes out and raises money 24 hours a day, it seems like. Now, that's obviously an exaggeration, but you take a look and see how many. Well, you go, yeah, you got to sleep. That's about right.
Well, Natalie Wassa, though, as an activist in the community, and you're also very active at the city council. You're there almost every meeting, making comments, watching legislation. What about the point that I think supporters of this amendment might make as far as the council and the mayor, that there is a learning curve? You need to be able to know how to do this stuff, and that arbitrarily cutting them off, instead of letting the voters cut them off, is going to basically it's going to be better for voters. People will be more educated, smarter in office.
Right, and you know what? That was discussed when they were going through the process of putting this proposal on the ballot. And frankly, I think 4 years should be adequate to get your ideas through and whatever legislation introduced that you think is really important. And then 8 years is more than adequate. So for us to think that we need to have an 8-year learning curve or 4, 6, I think that's just way over the top. I don't think that's necessary at all.
This is a good question from a viewer. What do the guests feel would be the impact of such long terms for mayor and council members? Go ahead, why don't you go first?
Well, obviously, what they've done is they've made it so that the mayor and the council members who are in office now would then start their term, I believe, with the one that they are in.
It counts against them.
Right.
The time that they've already spent.
Right. So, but then they would be able to have 2 more terms, and any newly elected official would have 3 terms. I just think that we're at a place where we need to have, as Peter said, more people coming in with newer ideas. We get stuck in a rut, and people just do what, I think they lose their sense of who they're working for and considering what the people really want. So that's what I think will happen.
What do you think about that? What do you think would be the impact of having people being able to stay in office for 12 years in these positions, the mayor and the council?
It would make it more difficult for them. I mean, frankly, what it would do, it would cause them to be in exactly the same position for over a decade. And what they would be doing is they would be institutionalizing themselves as well as having other people institutionalizing the mayor's office. And if you get in that office and you have the right credentials, and the right credentials are usually experience, and that never seems to be a guiding light in some of the local elections. But if the person has the experience to do a job that is a CEO of a significant company or of a government agency, then that's the kind of person who you want to put in. And if you put them in, they're going to be able to get enough done in 8 years to pass it on to somebody who's their designee if people like them.
You know, there's another important aspect about it, and when you said decade, that reminded me. Somebody had put in testimony that when the city employees go up to the 10-year limit, then they're vested in the retirement, whereas if they're not, if it's only 8 years, then they don't get to apply for the retirement at any time, that they're limited to the 62, 65-year
Sure.
age. So that could end up costing us more as well in, you know, the retirement.
Because those
benefits.
legislative pensions are also way more generous than the pensions of the rank and file government workers. I think they're twice as big.
If you're an elected person, okay, you're treated very well because other elected people have decided that they want to be treated very well. So you do get a tremendous advantage, and it's very expensive.
Let me throw out the number one argument against term limits that you hear, and you hear this from the legislators a lot, is that the ultimate term limit is the voters. If the voters want you to stay, they should be able to re-elect you.
That's what my husband says. You know, but we've
This must
seen,
have interesting discussions.
Yeah, we do. But there are so many cases where there are incumbents running unopposed. I mean, they put their name in and that's it. They're done. They don't have to do anything else. That happened with a member of the city council. It's happened with the state legislature, this race. And how can the voters then change things if there's nobody else to vote for?
Well, I think the thing, though, is that, and I feel like I have to be the devil's advocate in this conversation because we've got two people against this amendment, but the idea being that if the voters are re-electing these people, the voters must be happy with them.
Okay, people vote for what they're familiar with. And number two, if you're in that position, you have the advantage of doling out favors to people, hiring your friends, punishing your enemies, and you can also sit there and amass some enormous amount of money, sometimes apparently in this case nearly a couple $1 million. Of course you're going to be out front, and everything that you're going to do is, every commercial is going to say, oh, he smells like a rose, you know, the hand of the Lord is upon him every day of the year, and he's the nicest human being on the planet. And you're talking about a scoundrel. Okay, so that's the point. The point is you have to make sure that you don't institutionalize these people so that they can take advantage of every opportunity that they've been given, and they have more of a likelihood of the voters actually looking at the merits of who they're talking about.
I think here's a caller who I think agrees, although puts it in the form of a question. Wouldn't longer terms just give incumbents more fundraising power and name recognition? Is that fair?
Hallelujah.
Why don't state legislators have term limits? Kind of a basic question.
Because they're the ones who have to change the law, and they don't want to. I think that's been the case. I mean, there have been some who've introduced legislation year after year, and it just doesn't go very far.
Let me ask this question. If you did, let's say this passes, and if you could take the money piece out of the equation, would that make longer terms or longer times in office more acceptable? If you didn't have the whole big fundraising
Yeah,
piece?
but you've still got the same amount of opportunities to do the things that I was just talking about. You know, oh, Cousin Vinny's going to be coming in and taking over this, and this person over here is going to be taking over the department of whatever, you know, because he's a good friend and all the rest of those things, although they'll have all sorts of flowery things to say about the person. So no, that you would still have exactly the same problems, just not as aggravated as it comes with money. But money is the root of all evil when it comes to political campaigns, and there's not much anybody can do with it considering the Supreme Court decisions.
Well, maybe one thing that might come out of this conversation is a little more pressure on legislators to accept term limits on themselves. Sounds like you would certainly support that.
Yes, I would, and I think there will be some more legislation introduced this year to have that happen. We'll see if they go for that or not.
You know, let me ask this, Natalie Iwasa. What is the calculus that someone goes through when they're trying to decide to run for office? When you either is open seat or an incumbent, what kind of process do you go through before you decide you're going to make that commitment to run? And then how hard is it to actually run?
Well, speaking from my own experience, first of all, I had many conversations with my family. So if you have anybody that relies on you, I think that's a big component of it. I think people who take that step are probably a little naive unless they're very close to somebody who's already done that. I talked to a candidate who ran for mayor, and that's exactly what he said, that he was just frustrated with things and wanted to put his hat in the ring. And he learned how much work it is, how hard it is to get recognized, to get airspace, media exposure. So some of these things are just the person doesn't know until after they start going into the race and they find out the hard way.
So, Peter Carlisle, do you think that this power of the incumbency is a big factor in why, like, for example, this year, it seems like we have a third of the usual contested races that we usually do, and many candidates, people who are running, are really not prepared to put on a big campaign?
I don't think you can make the causal relationship as the only reason why that happened, but I think a lot of it has become I think people are frustrated with the political system. People are not showing up and voting in droves. You've got people who are not only apathetic but sick of it, and as a result they decide, I'm wasting my time because it's always the same people and it's always the same results, and we never move ahead in virtually anything without lawsuits and people who are busy trying to collect money and hiring the wrong people for the wrong reasons.
You know, you earlier mentioned, and I know you're a major critic of Keith Kaneshiro and have been for many years, and so this question is not meant to be about that, but the question that viewer came in, does the panel feel there are any reasons a prosecutor should have no term limit? And I'm wondering, is it possible for a prosecutor to get entrenched as well?
Well, it could. And the other problem is with the prosecutor's office, though, is that you've got such a small pool. I mean, you're elite. First off, you have to have been practicing law for 5 years. So you have to be a lawyer. Then the next step is you've got to basically, you have to have practice if you're going to be in that job and you've been out of it for a while. You have to be able to have practiced criminal law in 4 of the preceding years, 10 years of coming up to the next election. Well, that cuts down even greater numbers. And then you've got the problem is if you're the prosecutor and you're doing that, you're always being invited or enticed to go into the defense bar and make more money. You're always basically having to deal with your family, going through threats and things like that, which happens with a great deal of regularity. But if it's the job you want to do and you love it, money really isn't the operating factor.
Well, let me ask this question, though. I mean, here we have a prosecutor who was being criticized and had some, 1 or 2 high-profile things that were some negative publicity. Yet the person who's running is a absolutely fine person, but has not really been able to get much momentum and doesn't do much fundraising, is by some considered not to be a particularly competitive candidate. Why don't people who are longtime attorneys run against the prosecutor?
I'll tell you flat out, I tried to recruit people right, left, and all over the place to end this abysmal performance. And you can get them up to a certain level, and then suddenly it becomes very difficult for them. 1, because they're all afraid of incumbents. 2, because he has money, not a lot by standards of a mayor's race, but certainly for the prosecutor's office. And 3, this person is believed to be retaliatory in nature. So somebody does something to him, he decides that he wants to do something back to them. And if it's not, it may not be something that's particularly obvious, but it may be more something like, well, this guy is going to be sort of shut out.
But aren't you making an argument for a term limit?
No, not at all. Because I would think that if you had somebody like that, you ought to be able to bounce that person out.
Okay.
And if people aren't going to do it, then they're stuck with what they got.
Okay, so Natalie Wassa, I know that you're a keen observer of city government. On the issue of term limit for prosecutors specifically, do you think that that's a good idea? I mean, generally you like term limits.
Well, I think Peter mentioned that it's a good argument that it's this very small pool. Perhaps a longer term would be something to look at. And I think it's unfortunate that the commission put these 2 together, the mayor and the city council, which are similar, and the prosecuting office, which is very different, actually. So, yeah, perhaps a longer limit would be a good compromise.
Well, if you have a prosecutor who virtually walks on water, you should keep him.
Or, don't entice him right from here. Okay, so here's a question. I'll let you guys try to do this, because you both know enough about government. What advantage would you see in having longer terms? Are there any? This is a viewer question.
Well, it's institutional knowledge. I mean, that's the thought, that they've done this often enough that you get better and better and better at it. Or if you're some people, you've done it worse and worse, and you keep on doing it over and over and over again. I like to think of my close personal friend, Rocket Rodney Tam, who was certainly good at getting money for purposes that had nothing to do with his campaign. That person was he could stay there over and over and over again because these people kept on putting him back in the office.
Let's talk a little bit about the Do you want to take a stab at that? Or do you see any value in it at all of giving the 12 years or having to run 3 times?
I suppose there is. If you have somebody who's really good and really looking out for the people, then you want to keep that person in there as long as you can. Otherwise,
Franklin Roosevelt.
Otherwise, I lean more toward we should have the limits.
Now let's talk a little bit about this process that we have.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Name thing. 20 amendments. I mean, it's a passel, and if you look at the sample ballot, it's very intimidating.
Yes.
How are you going to do it, Natalie? You've been watching this process. You know what this is.
Yes.
Do you think this is really difficult to expect people to be able to figure these things out? This amendment's confusing enough.
Yes, and I did participate in many of the commission meetings. They were meeting almost every week for months. And one of the things that I had asked was that they try to pare it down. And they actually did. They combined some proposals. Some of them they put it on the side right away. But it's intimidating. And some of these proposals that proposed amendments are very complex, and I think that we're going to run into problems if people don't understand what the issues are behind them.
What do you think it's going to be like?
The last thing you want to do is to have them going to the newspaper and saying, which they've all checked off what the newspaper wants out of them. Okay, and so that you vote this for this, and they'll give you 27 things, and they'll give you some explanation of it, which would probably come from the idea, basically the viewpoint of their editorial board and their the person who's in charge of the newspaper. But the point of the matter is that really you have to remember that you can vote on some and you don't have to vote on all. And if you go there with the idea that you've got to once you start, you've got to basically keep every one of these things checked, that's not correct. And I think that a sensible thing, which I plan to do, is to look at it, and if I have no idea which way I believe it should go, then I'm not going to vote for it one way or the other.
Same thing. I mean, do you think you'll be able to make a decision about every one of these amendments yourself? And
yes.
You're highly...
I will. I have opinions on almost all of them, as a matter of fact. But I'm not sure how the ballot is going to be set up, because the commission had also talked about having a 1 or 2 sentence option that would say yes to all of the voters or all of the amendments. And I think if that gets on there, that is going to be really bad, and people need to look out for that and be careful that they don't check that by mistake.
I think that the sample ballots, and this is instructive to viewers at home, is that the sample ballots are now available on the Elections Commission website, the State Election Division. If you put your district in there, it'll show you your ballot. I mean, I looked at it, and that's what kind of blew my mind when I saw it. It is a solid page of individual amendments. Do you think this is going to be...
Let me ask something. Now, I'm intrigued about this. Has that always been there, that you can always say, I vote yes for everything?
Each commission decides how they want to set up the questions, how they want to educate people, and so that particular... I don't know if that was on a prior ballot or not.
Has that ever happened? Because if that's a new device to try and get people to sort of vote en masse for one particular.
Frankly, I looked at the ballot. I don't think it's there.
Okay, yeah, so that was something.
I'd always, as a journalist, I'd always double check something like that.
Right,
I didn't look for it, but I also didn't see it.
Okay.
But folks could go look and be intelligent about that. This does bring up the issue, though, of blank ballots. We've had situations before where a very small proportion of the voters will actually vote on some of these amendments, and I think that that's going to be the case this year. One thing that we should also help the voters with is that the electing one of these amendments or choosing one of the amendments is purely based on a majority of the votes cast on that question.
Yes.
So blank ballots won't count against the question.
Yes.
Which is the way, of course, it always should be, unless and until you have people who want to mess around with language so that you can get yes means yes, no means no, and blank means no too, which, of course, isn't English, isn't common sense, and is pure garbage, and that's been done for years here, and it's shameful.
Well, if you look at this particular question and you vote yes, and you're putting a term limit on one office and increasing the term limits for other offices, so it catches you right in the middle, right? Okay, and then I'm sure there's others. Let me throw this question out, interesting question. Is there any responsibility on voters? Shouldn't they inform themselves more and learn more about challengers instead of just voting for the familiar name. This goes back to the term limit question.
Yes,
Natalie?
of course they should. And the commission, in case people don't know, the Charter Commission has all of the questions on their website. They have links to the description as well as the proposed Ramsey changes in the charter. And I suggest that people actually look at that proposed change rather than the description, because there's some important details in there that might be missed by the description.
Are you concerned, Peter, about this whole election process sort of discouraging people more this year? Is it kind of depressing?
I think, I really do believe that if you look at what options people have been given, if you look at the way we've performed in the past in terms of voter turnout, I think it's very discouraging. And I don't think that that's something that's unique to Hawaii by any stretch of the imagination. And I think it's a problem that's nationwide, and I think it's a problem that's just overwhelming in Washington, D.C., considering the candidates who are being involved.
You know, given that we're sort of been trashing this particular amendment, kind of trashing the process a little bit, we do have 2 strong votes for having a constitutional convention at the state level, getting a bunch of more amendments there, and having a movement to force legislators to have term limits. So I want to get that last word in from some of our viewers. Meanwhile, thank you both very, very much, Natalie Iwasa and Peter Carlisle. I didn't miss your name
Well done.
once.
I'm proud of you.
It's always a challenge. Okay, thank you all of you for joining us tonight. Join us next week for Insights on PBS Hawaii with continuing coverage of election 2016 with the South Maui District candidates for Maui County Council. Incumbent Dan Couch, who serves as the Council's Planning Committee Chair, will join us along with his opponent, business owner and renewable energy advocate Kelly Takaya King. Then we'll hear from the candidates for Honolulu City Council District 9. Incumbent Ron Minor and his opponent, Emil Servina, will be here to talk about the issues important to the areas of Mililani, Waikele, Waipahu, and Ewa Beach. That's on the next Insights on PBS Hawaii. Thank you for watching. I'm Daryl Huff. A hui ho.